You know, so I'm not one of these people, like I heard someone in the audience who's cynical enough to believe that we went in for the oil. But we sure as heck ain't leaving without it.
Born and raised in Southern California, Greg Palast is an investigative reporter for BBC TV and the British newspapers The Guardian and The Observer. His reports and his book, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, form the backbone for the film Fahrenheit 9/11. Though largely ignored by the mainstream media, Palast has uncovered shocking stories about globalization, corporate cons, and high finance fraudsters. As Noam Chomsky puts it, Greg Palast upsets all the right people. On Mother's Day 2004, Palast shared some of his disturbing discoveries with a crowd of several hundred at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Diego.
Do you remember why we went in to Baghdad? In other words, moved in. Our president on March 17 of last year, do you remember what he said? I remember. I kept a copy of the speech. You all kept a copy of the speech. I have a little checklist of what he said was going to happen. Anyway, he said, our president said that, he said, I want to talk directly to the Iraqi people. Remember that? Remember that? He's which, Dick Cheney didn't tell him that they speak Arabic, but okay. But I thought it'd be interesting. I thought he would say, given, you know, Cassie and other people going in, that he would say, our sons and daughters and mothers and dads are coming in. They're to liberate you. And so don't shoot them. Yeah. So, but instead he said, and I'm quoting, do not destroy oil wells. I don't make sense. And he said, you know, weapons of mass destruction. We'll be coming in to plant weapons of mass destruction. He said, and we're also, that he was now going to go after all those who have aided, trained, and harbored terrorists, including operatives of Al-Qaeda. And I thought, he's going to bust his daddy. Imagine, what a Mother's Day! Can you imagine Mother's Day reading Barbara her rights? Spread them, Dad. I know someone out here who said, why do we go? And someone said, oil. I know why the misimpression back in February of 2003. Ari Fleischer, spokesman at the White House, held a press conference to announce the beginning of Operation Iraqi Liberation, OIL. I'm not kidding. They said, oi, next day was oif, oif, oif. Iraqi freedom, Operation Iraqi freedom, oif. Right? That's so they had to change all those, you know, NBC logo things that were flashing around. That's because our president said we don't need no subliminal messages. Remember that? I don't know. So I didn't. So I wouldn't have thought. I wasn't the way we went in for the oil, but and then it's this document. Something fell into my hands. See, for those who know me, little documents walk out of government offices. This is from the U.S. State Department, confidential document, and it is, excuse me, it is part of a larger document called the Iraq Strategy. This is the post-conflict plan for the economy of Iraq, which was developed about a year before we were told there was going to be a conflict in Iraq. But okay, if you're going to conquer a place, you might as well have a plan. And I thought, well, but I thought, you know, hey, it's going to be all about, you know, maybe turn on the water, you know, something like that. But no, if you look at this, it's like, and it's highly detailed. It's 101 pages long. You turn to like page 45. I got all these sticky tabs. Jeez. And the U.S. State Department is helpfully going to fill out the application for Iraq to the World Trade Organization. That's one of the things. Okay, be the first nation on the planet with no tariffs. Free, not only free fire zone, a free trade zone. Flat taxes. I mean, a whole entire neocon economic program, page after page, privatization of 6 of the top state banks, 100% foreign ownership of industries, a new currency, the Bush dinar. No, that's not in there, but you know, but a new currency. I mean, they have it all laid out, And Appendix B, the schedule. Now, when I saw Appendix B, I thought of J. Garner. Remember General J. Garner? He was the first, I don't know if you remember, he was the first kind of pasha that we parachuted into Baghdad. He was going to be our civilian, the viceroy that President Bush had appointed. And I took this document down to Washington, D.C. with my BBC camera crew from London and Paris. And I sat down with General J, because he'd been fired. Remember? He got canned, right? And I wondered why, until I looked at Appendix B and I showed him the document. I said, do you know about this? He said, oh yeah. He said, I basically had it in my back pocket when I flew into Baghdad. He said, pretty elaborate. I said, yeah. I said, well, see, on page 73, we're talking about, you know, all of privatizing all state industry, especially privatization, asset sales, concessions, leases, and management contracts, especially in the oil and supporting industries. Selling the oil and supporting industries, especially the oil industries. So you knew about this. I said, oh yeah. See, what General J did, and I asked him about one thing that he did when he got off the plane. See, he got off the plane after he'd been appointed by the president, who told him he was going into Iraq to bring them democracy. So he gets off the plane and he announces on the tarmac that there will be elections in Iraq in 90 days. Iraq for Iraqis was his phrase. Sounds good. And he even said, Iraqi oil for Iraqis. He gets to Baghdad and the phone rings at midnight. Washington, don't unpack, you're gone. Donald Rumsfeld was on the other line. He was out. See, because if you look, 90 days was a dual problem. First, that meant that there'd be free and fair elections in Baghdad before Florida. And the second is that, you can't build, here we go. You can't take all the assets, the banks, cut the tariffs, cut the business taxes, and take the oil all in a day. See, there's a schedule, and it takes 270 to 360 days to do that. There's a big problem then. If you have elections in 90 days and you need the oil, it takes 360 days to get the oil, there's a problem. So they removed General J, and they put right in Paul Bremer III. Zoom. When General J was removed, don't forget how they did that. They said he was hapless, incompetent, terrible, unlikable man, played with girls' dollies. They didn't just get rid of him, they ruined him. All those rumors printed in the Washington Post that came from the White House. Then they put in Paul Bremer, who now got tremendous stories in the San Diego Trib and elsewhere about what a great guy he was. Now, General J had, he spent years in Iraq. He was well known and well liked by Iraqis because when he was occupation chief in the northern zone, he let them run their own operation. Paul Bremer did not have any Iraq experience, but he had something more important that qualified him. For 3 decades, he'd been the business partner of Henry Kissinger. Right? You knew about it. You read that in the Trib. I don't know. But who comes up with these things? First there was, so I'm looking at this document. So I sent it to the general. By the way, you can see this. I put this on the top of National Nightly News in Europe on BBC television. Got a small mention, Paul Krugman's column, but I said, so General, what about if you're going to have elections in 90 days, what were you going to do with this plan for the banks and the tariffs and the oil? And he said, I was going to give it to a legitimate elected Iraqi government, and they could do with it what they liked. Right. He's out. But who came up with it? That was interesting. So I'm looking at this document, tariffs, flat taxes on. I'm doing this, Smells like Grover. Grover Norquist. It just smelled like Grover Norquist. If you don't know who Grover Norquist is, Grover Norquist, every Wednesday in Washington, D.C., Grover Norquist, who is the big shot lobbyist, he represented Microsoft, he represented American Express, the big outfits. He leads, every Wednesday in Washington, a group of the big corporate lobbyists, the big media right-wing moguls like National Review, Washington Times, and the social conservatives, as they're called. That's like the Christian Coalition and the National Rifle Association. And every week, it's like a kind of a black bag lunch of the, where the avaricious meet the vicious, and they plan the week's, news control operation. They do. And one of their, and it just had that Wednesday group program to it. It was their whole program, even the NRA, all the Iraqis get to keep their guns, right? So it's Grover. So I went to Grover, sometimes called Gopher Nose Twist, by the way. So I went to Grover and I said, "Recognize this?" I put it on camera. I said, oh yeah, I'll sign it. He was very proud of the fact that he had in fact guided the writing of this document, including for his organization. He runs kind of a union for billionaires believing in flat taxes. And I said, well, what about the schedule? Gardner wanted 90 days, and the White House pulls them out, and they waiting more than a year, still no election. We got something called sovereignty. But one question for the president, I'd like to, if they'd let me into a presidential press conference, you know what I'd ask him? How do you spell sovereignty? Go ahead. Deep. Time's up. What is it? Sovereignty. No, not a vote. It's not spelled V-O-T-E, is it? Right? Anyway. He said, well, yeah, we can't. Of course there's no elections now. Because this has to happen first. See? Because he says, this is a quote, our model, the model I had in mind was Pinochet's Chile. He says, yeah, he says, because some things, and this is a quote, said, some things are too important to be left to a democratic vote. That's true. Okay. Oh, now, all this stuff was put in by, I mean, you got the whole thing. So September 18th, September 19th are days that Iraqis will remember like we remember September 11th. Okay? But different. Those are the days when Jerry Bremer put this into effect, the democratic way. He signed orders saying, I, Paul, that's his full name, Paul A. Bremer III, under my authority, signed orders 37, 39, 40, 17, flat tax, no tariff, sell the banks, etc. Under my authority, under the usages of war. The usages of war. I thought of the terror, you know, the horror of war, the sorrow of war. The usages of war. Okay. Who comes up with this stuff? And the oil. So I find out who wrote the oil section. Grover wouldn't get his hands on the oil. There's a 200-page addendum all about the oil, written by the patriots, patriotic duty done for us by Shell Oil, ConocoPhillips Oil. And I know some of you think that that's not balanced, so to balance it off, they include the Council on Foreign Relations and the James Baker Institute. Make a note of that. So yeah, I mean, you know, so I'm not one of these people, like I heard someone in the audience who's cynical enough to believe that we went in for the oil. But we sure as heck ain't leaving without it. Well, since we last got together, the September 11th committee met, so now all our questions are answered. Yeah, it was very interesting. Those two words were you couldn't hear during the committee hearing. It were prohibited. Saudi and Arabia, right? No one couldn't be mentioned. You know, it's like Saudi or Arabia can't mention. It's like it would be like, you know, passing wind at a debutante ball. It's not done. And but I had a couple questions. See. And I didn't get to ask them, so another guy asked them, and now he's been blocked. I had some information in the book, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, was finally going to kind of sneak in and be brought to the silver screen by Michael Moore, and as the film Fahrenheit 9/11. And until Meaty Mouse had a different idea. See, that's how I get my, if you're wondering how I get my stuff into America from BBC, what we say is if we can't get our reports in, just give it to the fat guy in the chicken suit and sneak it in. But they caught us. Forget it. So now, I'm going to show you what you would see what you're not allowed to see from the Meanie Mouse, which is a document, among other things. A document marked secret at the top and marked 199I, which means National Security, WF, Washington Office of the FBI. And it says that that the FBI wanted to go after a couple of guys in a suspected terrorist organization, which means like the First UUC Church, but these guys actually were kind of nasty. I mean, one of their operatives had been giving those little valentines from Osama to Al Jazeera, so there's good reason to question these guys, right? To ask them a couple questions. We do pay agents to ask questions of bad guys. But they weren't allowed to ask questions to the agents. They weren't released to do that. The case was closed until September 13th, 2001, when their agents were told, go get them. Talk to these guys. Well, who couldn't they talk to before September 13th? Turn the page. Omar and Abdullah bin Laden in the United States. Of course, by September 13th, these birds had flown. Okay? Now, that might be for me. So what's going on here? What's going on here? The agent. People always wonder how I get this stuff. All kinds of different routes, but in this case, I just want to tell you, the National Security News Service, working with me and BBC, the FBI agents came to the office in Washington, asked a couple questions, and when they left, they had accidentally left a folder on the desk. They called up and said, oh my God, we've left the folder on your desk. It's a secret document. You haven't looked at it, have you? We're going to be back in half an hour to get it, unless you need 45 minutes. See, because the agents, they're trying to do their job just like Cassie in Baghdad. The idea that they want to do their job, and not one of the agents I spoke to at the CIA or the DIA or the FBI ever said to me, we could have gotten these guys if only we didn't have that darn Constitution. Not one agent said that. A number of agents said, we might have gotten those guys if only we didn't have the Bush family's boots on our neck. Okay? That I heard a lot. Okay. Saudi and Arabia. Yeah, so why? Because you can't follow that connection. If you can't follow the money. Now, you've heard me before, and you've heard Michael Moore pick up on these stories of the Bush family, the bin Ladens. I mean, our president is one of those guys who struck it rich in the oil industry. Never struck any oil, but he did strike the pockets of several sheikhs, right? And then, and the bin Laden family kindly funded an operation called Carlyle Group, which employs both Presidents Bush, right? But what the heck? So, but our president, not that he's ignoring this issue of the Saudi money connection. Did they lend their credit cards to the guys trying to kill us, right? Because the families of the victims of the September 11th attack have sued the Defense Ministry of Saudi Arabia for providing the cash. Okay? Now, and our president was so concerned that he actually gave the lawyer on the case an office right in the White House. He did, right in the White House. It was the lawyer for the Saudis against the families of the victims. James Baker III. Now, James Baker. And I called the White House. I said, wait a minute, doesn't this guy have some conflicts? I mean, like he represents not only the Saudi government, he represents Exxon Mobil Oil, okay? The James Baker Institute, right? Special counsel to Carlyle Group. Okay. They said, no, he wasn't appointed by the president. He was appointed by the Iraqi government. The puppets we put in at gunpoint appointed his lawyer to be in the White House. But in fact, the White House also said he not only has an office in the White House, but the president lets him use the desk in the Oval Office while the president plays on the carpet. I made that up. Forget that last one. That's not true. So I should leave you with this thought for Mom's Day, my Mom's Day, Cassie's Day. Our president, it's from our president back from March 17 of last year. When he said, and I agree with him, he said, do not fight for a dying regime. It is not worth your life. So thank you.
What's up with the Democrats?
I don't know.
What's up with them? Why are
Well, I talked to Terry McAuliffe, head of the party. Look, the way I look at it, they can't send up, like, they're like jellyfish, they're invertebrates. It's a big problem.
That's what I would agree with you.
For the first time since Hitler invaded Poland in a preventative war, a country has attacked another country without any provocation.
To struggle against the implantation of settlements and to awaken the consciousness of people who've been threatened and bludgeoned by the kind of propaganda that we were subjected to here.